Hello and welcome to another episode of Movies That Make Us. I'm Jake.
I'm Tracy.
And I'm Val.
And tonight we are talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. And just like Batman, we couldn't do it alone. So we've got some friends with us today. We'll start over here to my not Val side. And with Blake, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and where you're from, where we can find you online. And then we'll get right into the movie. So Blake, go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Blake. I am part of the Let Us In, which is a TTRPG podcast under the Stolen Droids umbrella of groups. You can find us on the Stolen Droids website or on the Stolen Droids Instagram. I think it's at the Let Us In.
Perfect. Glad to have you, Blake. Craig?
I'm Craig with the Matinee Heroes, and you can find us at all things Matinee Heroes, matineeheroes.com, Matinee Heroes on Twitter, Matinee Heroes on Instagram. And now we have the Cast-Off show on Instagram and on Twitter, and we desperately need people to sign up for it because we just started that handle and we've got like 9 people and they're all contestants. So we need viewers.
and we've all been contestants on there. Tracy, Val, and myself, we've all been on there. I love Cast-Off. It's a fun show.
You guys are some of the best contestants we've had.
Well, we don't like to brag, but it's true. All right, Josh.
So I'm Josh. I actually run the YouTube channel, The 90s Kid. That's where you can find me. And then I'm also the 90s Kid at the 90s Kid 89 on Twitter.
Yeah, at the 90s Kid 89, because you weren't actually born in the 90s.
No, I am a fraud. I am absolutely a fraud, masquerading as a 90s kid.
That's all right.
Absolutely.
I could get into this right now, but I think it would sway us away from us getting into the 90s.
Were you actually a kid in the 90s?
How could you present this to me, Jake, and know that this was going to happen and not warn me that a tangent could be happening here?
Val, have you never been on our show before? There's always a tangent that could be happening.
That's what I'm saying. You should have warned me. We already have enough tangents that are going to happen, and now this 90s tangent, I want it to happen.
Wait a second. We're doing a bloated, unnecessarily long podcast about the Justice League?
I still have to get up at 3:30 in the morning, so I'm going to have to de-bloat myself just a little bit tonight in my regular bloating that I do on Monday.
So we're already going to do the Joss Whedon version of Zack Snyder's Justice League for this episode.
Yeah, all right. At least you'll get 2 extra hours of sleep.
All right.
I do want to say...
It depends on how you watch the movie. Some people may have gotten extra 4 hours of sleep. Go ahead, Val.
Welcome, Blake, and welcome, Josh. I don't think I've ever done a show with you before, but in the past 5 years, I have been just smashing the Snyder Cut at Comic-Cons, at Fan X's, anywhere I can say the Snyder Cut is going to suck. I have said it. I just want to show you. Right. I am wearing my Batman shirt today. This I got before all of this. I have been a Batman fan for a while. It's not that I don't want Batman to succeed, and now it just looks like I'm rubbing my boobs, which I also enjoy. But
we need to get the viewership up. So.
I'm also really tired, so it's just going to be all unplugged tonight.
Apparently, we're not only streaming on StreamYard, but we're on OnlyFans as well.
You didn't know, but I just wanted to say I wore the Batman shirt because as we get into tonight's episode, it's not that I don't love Batman. Okay, I'm just throwing that out.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
So Val's going to only have good things to say about Batman from that comment. That's what it sounds like.
I think you guys will be surprised what I have to say, actually.
So let's talk about why there is a Zack Snyder's Justice League, why that's different than the theatrical Justice League that we got, in 2019? 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2017. So we get Justice League in 2017, and now everybody starts calling for the Snyder Cut. So what is the story with the Snyder Cut?
So go ahead, Tracy. Yeah.
So partway through, while they did all the production on the film, and then while he was doing the edit, he started to get some pushback from Warner Brothers. They didn't like a lot of what he was doing with his cut. They made a decision internally that they were no longer going to move forward with Zack Snyder on future projects, but they had invested too much money in this and needed to do something to get this movie released. During this time, unfortunately, Snyder's daughter committed suicide tragically. He tried to work on the project as a way of like getting his mind off of his family and his issues, and it just became too much. And so he walked away. And then the studio hired Joss Whedon to come in, do some rewrites, do some punch-ups, try and do a better edit in order to try and make it salvageable.
And then we got Justice League, and it was salvaged.
It was salvaged. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a good film, but there were parts of it that worked quite well, and then there were parts that didn't work quite well. And then
I just want to know who thought it was going to work at all.
Decided to demand the Snyder cut.
I think it was Warner Brothers. I don't know that anybody looked at it and said, "Oh, it's definitely going to work," because you've got two very different directors with Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder. Their styles are very different. But to your point, Val, I don't know that anybody thought it would necessarily work. They just had to do something, and Joss Whedon was such a big name at the time because of Avengers and everything else.
If you're going to have someone come in and try and fix something, at the time, Joss Whedon, I would have said, yeah, this sounds like a really good idea. But let's be real. From the beginning, the studio has been a dick. Like, the studio, I don't think has wanted Batman to succeed at all, because if they did, they would get out of the way. Like, I feel like Warner Brothers Studio for these films, for Suicide Squad, Justice League, Batman versus Superman, the studio's just been like, hey, so what's going on over here? What are you guys doing? Hey, I think I can do this. Don't you think that dress should be purple? Like, they've been that mom, that Draper mom. And if you're not from Utah, you have no idea what that means. But they've been that Draper mom.
But if you're from Utah, you know exactly what that means.
At all the dance rehearsals and all the play rehearsals, and they think they know better. And I think if the studio would have just said, we hired the right people, we have the right producers, we gave you the money, make the movie, these movies wouldn't be such a pile of poo.
Why can't they do what the animation department does? Because the animation department for Warner Brothers is amazing.
I feel like the animation department's smoking a lot of pot, and so that's why they're not always like in there.
That we can write that off. It's California. It's legal. I think that should be a valid expense. But I think you're right. There are a bunch of what I like to call corporate Karens or conglomeration Karens. They stick their nose in a lot of stuff, and I think it's because of they have a different culture at Warner Brothers than they do at other studios. And Marvel Studios kind of had the advantage of having Kevin Feige there from the beginning and even before.
Exactly.
And fostering this through. He was always thinking about, let's make one movie at a time. We'll throw in some threads. They can be dependent on future movies, but if we don't make those movies, it's not dependent on the plot. Almost every incidental thing that's happened in a movie for Marvel that led to another movie was not something they guaranteed you was going to be, unless it was specifically a cliffhanger ending. The Avengers Initiative was just something they could have said at the end of Iron Man and never done, and that would have been fine. But Warner Brothers was like, no, we've got to do all of this 10 years of Marvel in 2.5 hours. And I don't see how Joss Whedon could have possibly have whittled this down at all.
No.
Well, Zack Snyder didn't do it. He needed 4 hours to do it.
He needed more than that.
So let's Snyder make a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. I think the key there is when Marvel started out, there were no stakes. They were working with, at the time, B-list characters. They're working with Iron Man, Thor, and Hulk. At the time, nobody knows those characters. So there were no stakes. And I think the studio was more willing to let, Kevin Feige actually do what he wanted to do. Whereas with DC, the stakes were there from day one because they had to catch up to Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't need to catch up. No, there was no catching up.
I agree.
They had 3 movies that came before this whole section of the, I don't know, Batman verse, whatever the crap we want to call it tonight. This section of new school Batman stories, they had movies before that made a ton of money. The stories were good. People liked them. And then all of a sudden, DC, Warner Brothers got some kind of like hiccup because Marvel was making good movies too. So now all of a sudden they don't know what to do with themselves. And I felt like they were running around with their heads cut off. Now Marvel comes in with this outline of movies that was good. And I feel like Warner Brothers came in with like sticky notes of things that they want to do, and they're like, "Can we make a movie?"
Well, I think when the Marvel Universe, the MCU started with Iron Man, and then you had Hulk, and then you had Iron Man 2. Like the idea of it being this interconnected, interwoven universe wasn't really there until Iron Man was a big success. And they thought, okay, looking at the characters that we have, could we get the Avengers off the ground? And then they started working toward that. And at that time, Warner Brothers, like you said, Val, they're finishing up the Dark Knight trilogy, which was awesome and amazing and great. But they had this idea of bringing all of their characters together into one movie wasn't even on their radar. And by the time they started thinking and realizing that's where Marvel was going and it was going to be successful, their first attempt at that was Green Lantern. And that was really not good at all. And so they had to go back to the drawing board, and you get Man of Steel. And I do think they felt rushed, whether they had to or not. I think they felt rushed, and they felt that pressure from the success that Marvel was having at that point.
So part of the problem is that you have DC, which has layers of managers and bureaucracy and people fighting for creative control. Then you have Warner Brothers, who's over that. Warner Brothers is owned by a Japanese company. So you have that level on top. So you have all these layers that you've got to go through in order to get a creative, coherent story through. In my opinion, this whole experiment could have worked, but it failed from the moment that they hired Zack Snyder to do the DC universe, because Zack Snyder is the wrong person to do it. He does not understand these characters. He doesn't appreciate these characters. He doesn't give these characters. He wants to deconstruct them instead of celebrate them.
Blake, I know you're a DC fan. What are your thoughts on what Tracy just said? You're just taking it all in. I know. I'm just worried that you're going to take it all in, and then like it's just going to explode out at some point. So I'm trying to give you a moment to vent here.
Basically, what I'm hearing is we started out talking about DC animated and how great those are. We love the animated things. DC live action, not so much. And I think a big factor to that is that the DC animated series, not necessarily the TV shows, but like the movies, they're direct results of already written stories, right? They aren't new properties, they aren't new ideas. Whereas all these live action things are new stories. And I think we love those stories that we already are familiar with because we read them in the comics, and then we love seeing them on screen in an animated form. And we kind of put all our eggs in one basket with Zack Snyder. You know, we kind of gave him the reins to everything, and we said, okay, let's see your interpretation of this. And that's something that we didn't have happen with the Marvel universe. We had so many different directors. We had so many different visions. We had so many different ideas. There's a reason nobody brings up the Ed Norton Hulk, because it wasn't that good. But it's still a part of the Marvel universe. It's still considered canon in that.
Right.
If we let the director and the production team of everybody that did the Ed Norton Hulk do all of the Marvel universe, we would be so disappointed. And that's what we did with this. We let Zack Snyder take the reins and run with it. Now, here's where the interesting thing comes. I like his interpretation of it. I think it's interesting. I like the darker characters. I like the darker tone. They're superheroes, right? There is no... Batman isn't real. He's never actually captured the Joker. And so it's his... I know. I'm so sorry, Val. She's done. She said she was going to come unhinged. But to say that Zack Snyder is doing disjustice to these characters, that's kind of a weird thing because they aren't real people. So you can't really do this. Superman doesn't stand for anything because he's a fictional person.
But you can do you could do disjustice to a plant.
How are you taking that, Jake?
Well, first of all, Blake, I know, is a big Superman fan, so it's shocking for me to hear him say he doesn't stand for anything. And I get what you're saying in the sense that he's not a real person, but I do think these characters have a history, and I think that they've got a past where you have certain expectations. When I go in to see a Superman movie, I have certain expectations of what that's going to be like, and Man of Steel was a slight departure from that, not as much as Batman v Superman was for me, and and Justice League was a little bit different still. And so I think you're right. They're fictional characters, so you can deconstruct them and do what you want with them. But I do think that there are certain expectations when I go in the theater and I'm going to watch a Superman movie, and same thing with a Batman movie.
Well, let's just take the superheroes and put them over here for a minute. I just want to watch a good movie that makes sense. How about that?
Mhm.
Because the reason why I like DC is because it is so dark. I like the idea that Snyder came in and he's like, we are actually going to show you how dark Joker is. Because Joker, he's the worst. He's maniacal. He's awful. He is a killer. I wanted to see. And I'm going to say it right now, I like Jared Leto's version of the Joker. We can get into that in a minute. Again, superheroes over here, okay? But what I have a problem with Zack Snyder in these movies is that he doesn't have like a follow through in his thought. When you get into the Snyder cut, the villains are like the worst villains that I think in a superhero movie ever, because they're not fully thought out. Like, and you can see that with Joss Whedon's cut. I feel like it was a big fat throwaway. I would rather just see the superheroes fighting the green screen that they're looking at, because I don't care about these villains at all. And when you get into DC has amazing thought out villains. And so I like the dark. I like what Snyder did with how he was going to bring us over to a darker side. I don't know how you can get darker than Dark Knight, but he was willing to try. But I just want to watch a good movie that has a thought out story that's going to have some kind of it was messy. Does anybody else agree it was messy?
No, Zack Snyder is an art director. He's not a director. He's not a story person. Which is weird because that's what a director of a movie is supposed to be first, as a storyteller. And he is not. He is, let's make the coolest looking scene, the coolest looking shot. And that's great. But I don't need to see the Flash in the Justice League cut spend 5 minutes with a car up in the air, slow motion, kind of touching a woman that doesn't know him. And we don't need 5 minutes of that. It looked cool for a couple seconds. He is really about what it all looks like. That's why 300 was so successful, because there's really not much to that story. But it looked cool.
Sparta! That's it. And killing everybody.
Just get some abs.
Okay,
make everything kind of golden and kick some.
I left my abs at home. Okay, I don't have them with
paint
me
them on
right
you can paint them on like Gerard Butler did.
Okay, so I want to
need a lot
touch
of
on what
paint.
Craig said, because IGN.com came out with a story that they went through and watched the Snyder cut, and anything that looked slower than a typical motion, they counted. And it timed out that there is 10, if you take out the credits, 10% of Snyder's cut is slow motion. This is a bloated film this is the most egotistical film I have seen in a long time. This is Snyder's id all over the screen. And it's all about him, and it's all about what he wants and what he thinks is cool, and not doing a story and telling a story. I think if you took parts of the Whedon cut and you take parts of the Snyder cut, because some of the Snyder cut worked, you could get a decent movie. But it's not going to be a good movie. It's not going to be a great movie. But there's a 3-hour decent film in there somewhere, but it's not with either one of these cuts. I tried to rewatch it today. I took a sick day from work, and I had it on. I fell asleep partway through because it is so slow. It's not a good movie.
I hope your boss isn't one of our fans watching this live stream right now.
Personal day. He took personal
Tracy,
day.
sick day.
I got
Mental
my
health.
second Pfizer shot, and it knocked me on my butt for a couple days. So
So I think,
but 10% slow mo. Come on.
It's I said it was the lens flare of the Snyderverse. It's just there. He sprinkles like, this would be better, slower. Where George Lucas was faster. You know, he's more of, let's slow it down. I want to see every possible second of this cool action that I'm going to show you. And I can see it working at some times, but I think it's way too overused for him. It's just a crutch.
I like the slow-mo. I just wanted each slow section just a teeny bit shorter, you know, because the flash moments, I got to say, in the Snyder cut, here's some good news. I love everything about Cyborg. in the first cut, I was like, why did you just throw this character away? Like, what the crap is going on that you have Cyborg and we know almost nothing about him? Like, you've got one of the most powerful characters in this story, and you just kind of was like, here you go. And then you kind of shoo him away. In this version, I love that we got more Cyborg. I love that we got to learn a little bit more about the Flash, because I do love that character, and I do love the guy who plays him, and I loved him turning back time. That slow motion of him turning back time, like, I get chills just thinking about it again. I have goosebumps. So there are a lot of good things about this film when you get to know the characters a little bit more, and Cyborg was probably my favorite part about this film, other than the last 35 minutes that I also loved, which I know a lot of people didn't.
I like that you brought up Cyborg and the Flash, because I felt like in the theatrical cut, Cyborg and the Flash were very much secondary characters to Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, and then Superman coming back. But you didn't feel that way as much in the Snyder cut. They were much more important and much bigger parts of the story, and especially, the Flash turning back time at the end. Without the Flash, they lose, right?
So
and
you should have done that backstory in separate films. By the time
this was 3 different movies.
Yes, by the time we get these characters all together, we should know these characters. We should love these characters. We should be excited to see what they bring together to the story. You shouldn't be introducing characters like Cyborg into a film that
as the world is dying, here's a new character that came to save you.
But do we blame that on Zack Snyder?
I was just gonna say, I don't think that's fair to put on Zack Snyder, honestly.
I feel like that's the production companies and Warner Brothers for not greenlighting the Flash movie sooner. And
but now you're making the movie, so this is what you have, and this is your job, and life's not fair. So if you're going to make the movie, push to have a little more time to develop these characters in this movie in the beginning than a whole bunch of fluff that we don't need. Again, it's just it's reprioritizing your storytelling, so we actually care if these characters die or not. In the first movie, I was like, whatever.
It's a story by Chris Terrio, Zack Snyder, and Will Beall. Zack Snyder is part of the story. So yes, it falls exactly on his feet. If they didn't make a movie, that's too bad. Don't write a story that involves someone with that.
I think what Blake was saying is, as far as like having to introduce the characters in this movie, that's not on Zack's.
No,
but he made the choice to write that character into this film.
Yeah, use them differently.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
So here's what I'll say about the pacing, including the slow motion. This movie, for me, watching it felt a lot like reading a graphic novel or a miniseries of comics, even right down to how they broke up each part of the film. So you had part 1, part 2. To me, that was like an issue that you would pick up. You'd go get issue number 1 of, Zack Snyder's Justice League. You'd read it, and it gives you a little bit of the story, and then it builds on that with the next issue, and maybe it highlights a character in each issue. And I felt like that's what this did. And to me, it felt like reading a comic book series, which was really kind of cool in a lot of ways. And the slow motion parts, to me, felt like the big splash pages that you get in the middle of a comic book. Like, those are the big moments when they want to focus on something and it takes up both pages in the middle of the comic book. I felt like those were the slow motion moments. And so in a lot of ways, I liked a lot of the slow-mo. Could it have been shorter? Probably. 10% of the film is a lot to have in slow motion. But there was a lot of it, as far as the pacing goes, that I liked.
And I agree to a point with you, Jake, but the first 5 minutes of the film is Superman's death scream. And it's like, okay,
that was weird.
Sense. It's activating the mother boxes. People are feeling it across the universe. I get that. That should have been 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And that was my problem with this film. Yes, it feels like a graphic novel in a lot of ways, but film is a different medium. And when I went to film school, I excelled in editing. That was my gig. And I was told many times that I was one of the better editors in my class. And the thing that we learned was you got to cut and cut and cut, and you got to get down to the bone and then build it back up a little bit. But you want this film to be as lean and as clean as possible. Whedon really was in a no-win situation, and across geek cultures, this was a Kobayashi Maru. He was in a no-win situation because he had Warner Brothers executives saying, you've got to lighten this film, you've got to shorten this film. Then he's got the Snyder fanboys who are screaming to have their original director's vision translated to the screen. There was no winning for Whedon in this, and I'm not excusing a lot of the things that he did. Like Val said, he cuts out so much of Cyborg, and that's why I say if you can take parts of both cuts, you're going to get a better movie.
I will allow the cross contamination of geek culture there only because it was Star Trek, so that's allowed always.
You got to know your audience.
Can I bring up something really important? Can we talk about Steppenwolf for a minute? Because I'm
80s band, or
yeah, I really wanted to. Tracy usually sings about this time in the show. No, so I do like him better with his new armor that's actually functional and everything. I still have a bad taste in my mouth from the original. I still don't care about him at all. Like, I really could care less. I couldn't care less about him. But I also think he needs leg day. Like, what's up with like his body being so big on top, and then he's just this little guy down here?
He's an alien. They have a different physique.
You just could. I feel like you could just flick him. Like, just flick him.
I'm going to be honest, and I know I'm a guest on the show, and I don't want to weird you guys out, but I thought he was adorable. There's something about his face that is just adorable.
No, he's the villain.
I'm with you, but there were times when I was like, "Oh, this little guy, he just wants to get back to Darkseid. Come on."
Yeah, I'm really tired of the trope of the fallen out of favor henchman who, because they did this kind of with Thanos a little bit with some of his minions. They were trying to impress him to get on their good side, and I don't really know if that's a thing, because in their world, I'm pretty sure had he really failed Darkseid would have killed him.
Yeah, why is he keep around this long? He was such a doofus.
Yeah. If we're talking about villains that are hard done by, I think for geeks, the minute you see Darkseid, intimidation, you know his backstory, what have you. Probably not a good idea, the first scene that he's in your movie, to have him taken out like a little biznitch, just with a little axe. And then he has to get dragged off. That was not a good introduction.
I don't care at all about him now.
But who's the guy who hits him with the axe? It's
Thor.
Ares. It's Ares.
I think
it's
Thor.
Different god, different culture.
The problem is that Ares we've already seen Ares defeated by Wonder Woman. So you're degrading your villain right at the beginning. When Thanos came in, Thanos kicked the Hulk's butt and did it with one arm tied behind his back, basically. You feared Thanos. You don't fear Steppenwolf. You don't feel Darkseid. Josh, you nailed it.
Yep.
I just thought I don't know much about Darkseid. He just looked like a guy with bad skin who was coming to for whatever reason to do something bad. And then you're right. It is diminishing returns. If Ares is defeating him, then how big a deal could he possibly really be?
Which is, I mean, and to be fair, in terms of story, it was in the past and what have you, he's probably gotten stronger. But I'm just saying, it didn't come across as terribly intimidating.
For surface geeks like me, that I know what I see in the movies with these characters, right? And so I don't know Darkseid. So all of a sudden I see and I'm like, oh, he's kind of a big deal. I don't really care for what he looks like. It is a little Lord of the Rings, but from Walgreens is kind of what I'm, seeing here. It's like the Walgreens version of like a Lord of the Rings deal.
Version.
And Wish, I wouldn't go quite to Wish. I wouldn't go
Family
quite
Dollar
to Wish with this. Walgreens is a little fancier, right? But this is the thing.
Fancier. Oh boy.
Than Walmart.
Okay.
But it's exactly what you said. Like, so I'm supposed to, if you are comparing yourself to Marvel and you're trying to beat them at their own game, one, get your own storyline. And then two, make your henchmen scary. Make your like bad guy scary. And I just wasn't scared at all, especially because you've already shown me that the guy who takes him down dies. So I'm not going back to a comic book and I'm like, hey guys, so like in this comic, it's, I'm not like that. I wish I was, but I'm a surface nerd. And so I'm going to go to the comic because of the cool characters you're giving me. I didn't want to touch anything. Like, I didn't want to go to any comic and learn about Darkseid. I was unimpressed. And then Steppenwolf, I was unimpressed. But I was impressed with how they were bringing, I wanted to see these characters together. Like, I wanted to see all of these superheroes together in a movie. That's what I did want to see. So, but they have to have a common cause. And I thought that they missed it when their common cause could have really been the whole time Superman being the bad guy. Like,
I think that's where Snyder wanted to go, and I don't think Warner Brothers was going to let him. That's my
Warner
feeling.
Brothers can suck it.
Well, so
I believe that's the title of the episode is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Warner Brothers can suck it.
no, I think eventually he was going to get there. If you guys are interested, people who haven't seen it, in Vanity Fair, he did an interview where he talked a little bit about what his plans were for the additional movies coming up. If there had been a Justice League sequel and if things had worked out differently, and in the Justice League sequel, and we keep seeing and if you read that, you can kind of understand these stupid dream sequences that we keep seeing in Batman v Superman, and then
stupid.
again,
Yes, they are.
awful.
But
Yes.
right
they
for the
are.
movie
If
you're
there's not
showing.
going to be a sequel.
Write for the
Okay,
movie
so-
you're showing. Don't write for
Yeah.
the movies that may never
But-
happen, especially since they have not
Exactly.
proven to be able to create a spin-off yet.
Yeah, but but his plan was Superman was going to be the bad guy in Justice League 2.
Yes,
Listen,
Colin. Yes,
Colin, you
you're
had an
correct.
opportunity to be on the show and you chose not to because you're a little chicken. So don't come in here with
Shots
your
fired.
opinions if you're
Shots
not
fired.
willing to speak up for yourself. So, yeah, so I think that was
Okay,
the plan to get to that point, but
Well, and
Go ahead,
then the
Tracy.
problem is that Snyder starts doing some deep dives into the new gods, which most people don't know and don't care about. And you start dropping in terms like the anti-life equation. Most people are going to be like, what the heck is that? Why do I even care? And it's like, that's Darkseid's motivation. And they never
listen.
really explain what it is.
it's in the name. It's anti-life. Like,
I was told there'd be
what
no
more do you
math.
need to know?
I didn't know I was going to have
think
to
you're
do
right,
calculations and equations when I go see a comic book movie. I should know popcorn, butter, sit down, watch. That's what I should be doing. I shouldn't have to do all this homework.
Says Craig, who probably does more homework for his shows than any of us ever do.
That's why I'm mad, because I couldn't possibly do enough homework to figure this stuff out. And DC's not my jam. I love Wonder Woman. I love Batman. I love Batman in this movie. Batfleck is a great Batman, and I
Batfleck
wish
is good.
Yes, he is.
Snyder could have made a great Batman movie. I don't think he could have made a good Superman or a good Justice League movie because the tones don't fit. Batman is a dark character from day one. It's right in his wheelhouse. Everything he did with Batman was great. The problem was it's not a Batman movie. It's a Justice League movie. And the first thing you have to do when you do Justice League is you have to find a way to get rid of Superman, because if he's there, it's over. We're going to be done in 15 minutes.
The answer to that problem, though, is staring them right in the face after they killed Superman. I mean, the black suit that he's wearing in the comics was not just for looks. In the comics, when he comes back to life, he doesn't have his powers. And he's wearing that black suit to absorb the sunlight so he can get his powers back. And for me, and this is just, I mean, it's not a slight against the movie. You can go down the route of Superman being angry and evil for some reason. But I think it would have been more interesting to have Superman come back and he doesn't have his powers. And so for the first time, he's got to go into this fight without his powers. And then, slowly he gets him back in the middle of the battle. I think that would have been a good way to kind of get around that problem. But Snyder, boy, he loves the idea of an evil Superman. And
okay, so the problem with Snyder with Superman is that he sees him as a flawed alien god. That is Snyder's vision of him. Snyder talks about how he wanted to deconstruct this character, and he wanted to discuss how he's an alien who's never going to feel comfortable because nobody's ever going to like him in America because they're afraid that he's so powerful. And then he's afraid to show his identity. And so they have all this fear and angst and everything built into Superman, which just doesn't exist in that character. And it's what Craig said. Snyder could make a decent Batman film, but he does not get Wonder Woman. And in the Snyder cut, when we have the robbery or whatever, the suicide bomb situation at the museum, in the Whedon cut, when Wonder Woman does her gauntlets, we cut to the scene being done. In the Snyder cut, we cut to a huge explosion, and then the guy's hat comes flying down, and then Wonder Woman's trying to comfort the kids. So, like, she basically decapitated this guy with an energy blast in front of these children, and then she's like, "Everybody's okay."
Blake, I feel like you have something to say, and he's sitting there like sitting on his. Yeah, go ahead.
I do want to give Zach credit on one thing. He knows how to cast movies.
Yes.
Yeah. He gave us Wonder Woman. I will always be appreciative of Gal Gadot. He gave us that. He gave us Henry Cavill. Great Superman. He gave us
as Aquaman.
Aquaman, he's a little bit too rednecky. He's more of a Duck Dynasty kind of Aquaman.
Listen, that's the coolest Aquaman I've ever seen. I mean, granted, the bar was pretty low, but he has just...
You've been muted, Craig Price.
All right, Blake, you've been sitting there ready to say something, and I want to hear your thoughts.
This movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, was made to please DC fanboys. That's
yes, it was.
So
that's why this movie was created.
So 3% of the people that are going to pay to watch it?
Yes, 100%. This movie, that was the whole petitioning and getting Zack Snyder to come back and finish it. And so if you're one of those, which is me, you love it. It's perfect. You think it's great. You love the visual effects. That's why you're there for it.
Yeah.
When you compare it to Marvel, it doesn't work. It's comparing apples to oranges because they're two totally different concepts, two totally different purposes. I just think I think as we've been talking more about DC as a whole and not just this movie. What this movie set out to accomplish, it did. I think it set out to accomplish finishing Zack Snyder's vision, giving the DC fanboys what they want. We got to see it.
And it was something to put on a new streaming service to promote it.
100%. 100%. It was used as a way to get people to buy HBO Max. This wasn't...
If I'm HBO, I'm mad because there's no way they got $70 million worth of subscribers to watch Justice League.
Yeah.
I think this movie has outdone... I was reading about it the other day. They got more subscribers from this than like Disney Plus has gotten. Like, I think it's worth.
I thought they got more subscribers from Wonder Woman 2, didn't they?
They got more
Wonder Woman 2 was awful.
Was streamed more.
And
I agree with you, Blake, on that. I think when we bring it up to Marvel, all we're doing in this setting, because we're here to talk about movies, is we're comparing it to make a movie that has a cohesive thought. That's all. I don't ever want to go, and I think this is where they're getting it wrong in general, not the Snyder Cut. In general, again, this is where DC is getting it wrong, and it has bled off into the Snyder Cut, is that they're trying right now to be Marvel, to compete with Marvel, when they should just pretend like Marvel doesn't exist. I'm 100%. Not even here. Marvel doesn't exist. DC has enough good storytelling on its own. We don't even have to pay attention. Like, make your own movies, write your own stories. Like you said, we've got a crap ton of stories in the comics to bring up. Now just have a cohesive script and make a movie based on your own plan, not someone else's plan. Because I think like that, and that's why we have to bring Marvel up, because they started going to poo when they started thinking, oh crap, we have to compete with Deadpool. Oh crap, we have to compete with this, that, this. Just make a freaking good Batman movie.
And I think that's where they're.
I started to sweat for a second.
I know.
But I think you're right. And I think that they finally realized that, in that they've decided to not have a giant interconnected universe like Marvel's doing. Marvel, every TV show, every movie, everything is tying into each other, and it's getting very intricate and very complex, and they're doing a great job of it. What DC said that they're going to do moving forward is that they're going to allow individual directors to tell individual films in individual ways and make the best standalone films that they can. The Robert Pattinson version of Batman is going to have nothing to do with any future Superman. They just hired an African American to write the next Superman movie. So they're interested in going in different directions, and there's talk that there may actually be an African American Superman, which would be interesting to see.
Michael B. Jordan.
I'd pay money to see Michael B. Jordan as Superman. No problem.
I'd pay money to watch him eat macaroni and cheese. I don't care. Whatever you want to do.
Lindsay says she found it to be artful and untasteful.
But untasteful.
But untasteful.
So this is the thing. I'm going to throw it out there. If this movie was going to a theater, which it might be after the next 30 days. No, it might be at a local theater here in Utah, maybe for a minute.
I've heard that there's
not
no
for a minute, 4
obviously
hours.
the nationwide
for 4 hours. No, but if it was in a theater, I would go see it. Like for me, I want to go see this movie on a big screen. I want to see it, like not on my couch. Like that's how I want to experience this movie. I think there's enough there that I enjoyed that I really, really want to see it. Plus, every time I go to watch it on my couch, I fall asleep in section 2. Like that whole part is just really, I don't know what it is, but it puts me to sleep. But I do like it enough. I do think it's better than Joss Whedon's version. And I would pay the money to go sit in a theater for 4 hours to watch it.
I would go see it on the IMAX if it's in an IMAX theater, because I want to see why this 4:3 format makes sense, because that just ticked me off right at the beginning. This is presented in... I did, just because if I'm watching it on my big screen TV, I want it to be on my TV and not these little, like when I watch Star Trek that was made in the 90s, I get the little bars on the side. That's fine. That's the way it was made. But this is, anyway.
See, that's what I heard.
Because this was Snyder's ego again. He wanted this released in IMAX, and the Warner Brothers people said no. So he forced them to do a 4:3 cut, so that if it ever goes to IMAX, it would look okay. But he didn't want to spend the money to make an IMAX and shoot on IMAX. So he wanted to have the benefit of IMAX without it being IMAX. And again, that 4:3 is awful to watch.
I heard he did this on a camcorder in his backyard.
Parts of it he did. That is absolutely true.
No, it was on his iPhone 11 Pro Max.
Because it would look a lot better than that.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
It would not be 4:3. Yeah,
I've seen the commercials.
Some of the CGI looked like a 90s video game render scene.
Yeah,
you can say that about any Marvel movie.
I'm not gonna hate on too hard on that.
So that's
you want to go watch the fight between Killmonger and Black Panther and tell me that looked good?
Rubber City, baby.
It did look good because it was freaking awesome.
Now I don't know why the DC ones, they're humans when they do human beings. Like you'll see that scene where Wonder Woman flies over on top of him and then he pushes the sword. She looks weird, but they look weird in all of the DC movies. So whatever video CGI people they use do it strangely, because that's what threw me in Wonder Woman 84 was it was better than the Cats released the butthole cut, but it's better than Cats, but it was still Cheetah. Still weird.
I don't mind the CGI at all. Like again, I that didn't throw me. The 4:3 didn't throw me at all. I thought Wonder Woman 2 was just awful. I just thought it was an awful story and an awful movie. But I would watch the Snyder Cut before I would watch 84 again.
I'll be honest.
I like this better than 84.
Yeah, I do. I really like it a lot better than 84. Yeah. Can we talk about the last 35 minutes of the film?
Do we have to?
Wait, because you liked it.
When are we going to talk about
the worst part of it? Go ahead.
We should talk about it because we don't agree.
All right.
We'll talk about it, Val.
Be entertaining here.
Before we do that, are we going to talk about Martian Manhunter?
No, you're right.
Martha. We can call her Martha.
That was the weirdest introduction to a character.
Why'd you say that name?
Oh, that was an interesting scene.
Martha?
Well,
that's my mom's name.
The only reason I bring that up, because I'll be honest, I don't think Zack Snyder has a terribly, I don't think he's good at directing emotion a lot and like the storytelling pieces of scenes. But that scene between Martha and Lois, I thought was actually very well done. And I that scene was getting to me. I was like, okay, this is great. And then she walked out and she turned into Martian Manhunter, and I'm like, oh, that kind of ruined that moment. I mean, that's cool, but
you have two top-notch actresses killing it. So I mean, if even no offense, I could have directed that scene and it would have been powerful because I just let them do what they do best. You have Amy Adams and Diane Lane. I mean, they're just amazing. So that's why you hire. That's why I said I'll give him credit for casting because you just have to get out of the way with those two.
Yeah.
All right, Val, let's
Go
talk
ahead.
about the last 35 minutes.
Well, I want to talk about emotions now. You guys brought up emotions, and now
Okay.
because I do feel like the original really was just like across the board nothing. But I do feel like the Snyder Cut gave me like some emotional value, like I said, in these characters. Again, the moments that Cyborg had, both with himself, then with his dad, then with that cassette when he plays it back. If you've ever lost a parent before, like that moment with his mom, like that was powerful. I liked that. That's what I needed. I didn't need it to be overly sappy, but I needed to know that these characters have feelings, and I really liked the stuff they put in there. I'm really sad that they, I'm probably the only one that they recast the Flash's dad.
They had great chemistry. I am sad about that.
I love that actor. What's his name, Craig?
Crudup. Billy Crudup.
Billy Crudup. I really like him. And they recast him. They announced it yesterday. And I'm just I don't like that at all. Like, just leave it alone. You got something that kind of worked here. Can we keep going with it? Or do we just have to keep ruining things? I don't know.
That's the problem with this is we keep having to rehash DC. We never let them finish a thing. Yeah. And that's what's frustrating is it's like, just let them tell their story. And some people will like it and some people won't like it. Yeah. But unlike Marvel, where we kind of forgave Thor 2 and let them finish the movies.
No, we haven't. We don't talk about it.
But we did let them finish the movies. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we do.
Yeah. And unlike DC, we never let them finish it. And I think that's what's so frustrating for DC fans. And why I was so grateful that this movie got made in the first place.
Why? Yeah, but there was a Thor 1.
What you're saying is this after a history. So you're just completely forgetting that there was several films before Thor 2, and Thor 2 is more of a bump in the road than the first movie they do. And that's the problem with DC is the first movie they do, they try to do too much, or they try to do whatever they can to catch up. And just do your own thing instead of what Marvel does.
But if you want a better comparison,
like Blake said, though, let some characters breathe a little bit. Like the minute something's wrong, they're like, "What do we have to fix?" Because they didn't like it 100%, so we have to fix. Nobody's going to like it 100%. People have to start caring about these characters, and they do that with continuity of the actors that play the characters. So if you want them to start grabbing onto something, stop messing with it, Karen. Leave it alone.
Yeah, that's on the executives.
The executive Warner Brothers needs to be invested in their properties.
They're not.
They need to give us another Shazam movie. They need to give us the Flash movie. They need to give us the Cyborg movie before they jump the gun and give us Justice League.
Yeah.
See, there's a perfect example. Shazam's a great movie, a standalone movie, and that's what they should be focusing on, not trying to interconnect it. DC can make good movies if they want, but they want to try to make Marvel. And that's the problem. I don't care if they make them interconnected or not. I just want them to be good. Shazam was good. Wonder Woman was good.
I totally agree with that. Wonder Woman's great.
There's a new creative head over at Warner Brothers. She released a statement saying that that's exactly the way they're going, Craig. It's individual directors, individual stories, and telling the best stories.
Show me the money. It's all talk until they do it.
See, I cut off Jake. So Jake, when you have a minute, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
all
Jake.
Good. My network has been kind of going bad, so I've just been sitting here trying not to look stupid while I'm sure I'm frozen or something for everybody else. So that's from. Well, thank you.
Colin wants more.
I agree with what Blake's saying. Well, okay, that's fine. But I agree with what Blake's saying. I want them to finish something. Like, after seeing this movie, after seeing the Snyder Cut, I kind of want to see the second Justice League movie and the third Justice League movie just to have them finish something. But we're not going to. It's not going to happen.
I feel like
ahead,
this
Blake.
movie, the Snyder Cut, made Batman vs Superman better.
Me too. I agree with you, Blake. I went back
That
and
would-
watched it. I went back and
Ugh.
watched it after the Snyder cut, and I was like, I actually care more about this movie
That,
now.
that doesn't mean it's like a masterpiece, but I
No.
think it improves the continuity of the story.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you.
I don't think Infinity War
But-
would make any
but
sense
the problem is
if you didn't get Endgame.
But the problem is that you're trying to do that retroactively. Give me the good story up front. By the time we get to Justice League, I don't care about Batman versus Superman was a dumpster fire. That is one of the few movies that absolutely upset me. Like I was really angry at that
Send
film
your
for
hate
so many
mail
reasons.
too.
Podcasts at moviesthatmakeus.com. I don't know that we're
Because-
going to get a ton of hate mail for that comment though, because there
It's
are
a
a lot of people
dumpster
who
fire
feel
of a
similar.
film. It's awful.
Yeah,
But let's talk about the final 35 minutes because, and again, this goes back to Snyder's ego and it goes back to the story. He's like, well, this is what I want to do. And he's introducing characters, he's introducing ideas that they don't do any setup for during the rest of the film. And for somebody that doesn't really get a lot of DC stuff, like my wife, she's like, now who is this? What is this? What's going on? Completely lost her in the last 35 minutes.
she didn't recognize Deathstroke right away.
Yeah, but what's
Yeah,
he doing there?
right away, I was like, this is the thing, because Blake had a good comment that I think we all agree on, whether it's right or not. This movie was made for the fanboys. It was made for a very specific audience. And if everyone else enjoyed it, then fine. There were a lot of parts about this movie I enjoyed. There were a lot of chunks of this movie that I thought could have stayed with the Whedon and never came back here, right? But I think the last 35 minutes of the movie was made for people like me. I yawned through a big portion of this movie. Tracy, we're not the same person. I yawned through a big portion of this movie. And then when I got to the end, I was like, something new, something I haven't seen regurgitated. Like, you're going to give me more dark. You're going to give me more story. You're going to give me the evil Superman that you've been telling me that you're going to give me. Like, for me, I wanted something new. I feel like we've been waiting for this. And then I watch it and half of it's a movie that I've already seen. And I wanted something new, something dark, something to look forward to. And I really enjoyed that last 35 minutes. And I don't care if I was the only person on earth that enjoyed it. I did. And I like Jared Leto.
All of that fine and all of that's valid. What I don't like about it is the fact that he brought Jared Leto in to film that sequence. So that wasn't even part of the original Snyder cut. It may have been intended to be part of it.
Yeah.
And why? Why would you spend the money to bring Jared Leto in to shoot a scene that does nothing but set up a movie that's never going to get made?
There
Because they
was
told him
no
he could-
Snyder cut.
Because
Ego.
they told him he could do whatever he wanted. They
No,
gave
they
him
didn't.
4 years and all
No,
the
they
money.
didn't. They didn't tell him he could do whatever he wanted because he wanted Green Lantern and not Martian Manhunter, and they said
Okay.
no.
Okay, so then he
Kilowog
fought for
was in
this
there.
other stuff.
Well,
it was
yeah,
like,
Kilowog
whatever,
in the
but like
beginning, yeah.
it's exactly if you give Quentin Tarantino, if you take away his editor who is now dead, who edited all of his films, and now you're like, oh, you can make a movie as long as you want. All right, well, I'm going to do whatever the crap I want to do with it. So if he knows he's already going to do it, then whatever. I liked it. It is bloated, is egotistical, and so is Batman, and so is the Joker, and so is everything we're talking about today. Like, it is all ego. Every single bit of it is effing ego.
And the other thing, when you talk about the last few minutes with Jared Leto's Joker and Batman, like that's where it gets its R rating, is because this is the second F-bomb that it drops in the film.
It's the third.
The first one's, is it the third?
It's
okay.
the third.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why you have to make a Justice League movie that's rated R. Because these
No.
are characters that could be family friendly. I get that you don't want to make it super family friendly, but come on. Like the point anyway,
I think it was kind of him flipping people off that
So here's the thing.
he was
This whole
proving
movie
a
was
point
him
with this
flipping
movie.
off.
Yeah, I mean,
That-
so
exactly.
why do we expect anything different from this?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
last 35 minutes.
So what cracks me up is they go, we have to keep moving. If we stop, he's going to find us. And then they stop in the middle of the road and have a 7-minute monologue from Jared Leto, which is shot from the side with the sun coming in and out from behind him with soft focus. I'm like, what is this angle? What is this shot? It was awful. And Jared Leto is the worst Joker, worse than Cesar Romero. I like some of Leto's stuff. I like what he did in Blade Runner.
Wait a second.
2049.
Who said Cesar Romero's a bad Joker? Whoever said
Well, that's
he's a
what I'm
bad
saying.
Joker?
But when you compare him
He's
to
a
Joaquin
totally
Phoenix
different
and
Joker.
Heath Ledger, but it just that whole sequence just was awful for me.
I enjoyed it.
My
is
issue
fine.
with yeah, I think my issue with Jared Leto's Joker, I feel like he's pulling from different performances that he's seen before. Like to me, I felt like I saw little hints of Heath Ledger, little hints of Joaquin Phoenix. But the worst thing is, when you watch Heath Ledger as the Joker, you're just pulled in, you're sucked in, right? When I'm watching Jared Leto, I feel like I can tell that he's performing. I can tell that he's trying very hard to exude a certain feeling. And I can't imagine how difficult it is to play a character like the Joker. That's a tall order. But for me, it just didn't scan with me. Better than Suicide Squad for sure, but still it didn't work for me.
And with that big turd in the punch bowl of Jared Leto's Joker, we now move on to our next segment. Jake!
I think
Everybody
one
just
thing,
stared like, what the
I didn't
hell
know if
just
like
happened?
Blake had something to say or Jake. I was trying not to always like talk.
I think Jared Leto's Joker is one of those polarizing characters that there are a lot of people who like him and a lot of people who really hate him, and you're not going to find anybody in between.
And I love that.
And so I think we've got a group of
love
people
when you have a
Yeah,
character like that,
So,
because the
AKA
Joker
this
is
movie as a
polarizing.
whole.
Well, yeah, and here's
yeah,
the thing.
Fair too, Blake. Go ahead.
No,
Josh.
and here's the thing. Look, I'm not a big fan of Zack Snyder, but I will say this about this film, that it has over the original and has over a lot of movies that are coming out, blockbusters. You can feel the passion and you can feel the strong desire to make this into something. You can feel Zack Snyder's heart and soul being poured into this. And I will give it that. I think that there is, I think that's why it is so polarizing, because for people for whom that resonates with, that really resonates with them. And then for people who it doesn't, it's just, But I don't know. I'd like to, it would have been, honestly, I think what would have been great is if Zack Snyder had been given like an Injustice. I would love to see, because that's kind of what he's going towards, you know what I mean? And I do want to see that. I absolutely want to see that. But it's just been so long since, it's just been so long since we had a Superman who's a Boy Scout and is just unflinchingly good. I'd just like to see that. I don't have a problem with this Superman existing. I just would like to see the other kind of Superman too. I miss that.
I'm with
Superman
you, Josh.
Superman and Lois. That's where you'll get that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic show.
Yep. I think we have to talk about the music in this movie.
Yep.
Because
in this movie?
One great Amazon scene.
Every time there's an Amazon, we get that music.
I just remember
and then we get the Norwegian women singing,
the sweater
too.
sniffing Norwegians. That's all I remember.
The creepiest thing in the world. Like, if you would have had a guy do that with Wonder Woman's like belt or something, like go up and smell it and then start yodeling, like it would be all over. Like #MeToo, stop smelling Wonder Woman. But now we've got some girl singing some song and then smelling the sweater and taking it off and doing God knows what with it. Like, what the crap was that scene?
It's a new commercial for Momoa. The new
Nobody wants to buy that cologne, because let me tell you, he may spend a lot of time in water, but none of it is bathing.
No.
None of it is
beer
bathing.
In the water all the time. What are you talking about?
And it's beer and butt and seafood. That's what he smells like. Beer, butt, seafood. BBS.
Low tide at the boat ramp is what he smells like.
There were just, the music for me was a struggle in this film. And Tracy, you mentioned you missed. Yeah. Obviously, Tracy, you mentioned you missed Danny Elfman's score from the theatrical cut. I always miss Danny Elfman's score. Like, even if I'm watching a movie that he didn't do the score for originally or ever, I miss Danny Elfman's score because he's just my favorite. but like
Well,
there were
at
just
least
some
we
weird
had-
song choices in this.
Oh,
Like when she's
Zack
walking
Snyder,
up to the
his
memorial.
needle drops. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like when Lois Lane is going up to the memorial, and the song that we're getting for that is just so bad. And then there's another song that's also very slow, that's got words, and it's Aquaman going into the ocean. And it's not the Norwegian part. That was also weird. But there was where I'm just like, what is going on with this music?
It's Nick Cave. It's the artist Nick Cave that Zack Snyder loves. So he wanted to do a couple needle drops, and he is famous for doing needle drops in movies. And it drives me crazy because it takes me out of the film. It's like dropping Hallelujah and Watchmen. It's like the best and worst needle drop ever. But
and then whatever that song was at the ending title sequence, the credits. I'm glad I turned it off immediately because it's like, oh, this movie's over. It's not Marvel. There's not going to be a little happy scene at the end. Let's get this crap because this music's awful. Click.
Yeah, you were smarter than me because I was afraid I was going to miss some kind of mid-credit scene, so I kept listening to it.
Jake. And
time I'll never get back.
That is Zack doing that on purpose to punish you.
Yeah.
And I don't mind. I don't mind alternative soundtracks. Like I love the theme for Wonder Woman when they bring in that electric guitar for her theme.
Yeah,
it kicks butt. It's fantastic. I love the Mad Max soundtrack, the Fury Road soundtrack. I don't mind having kind of more of a rock and roll edge, but give me some emotion. Give me something that I can think of. When I think of Superman, I've got a theme song in my head. When I think Batman, I've got a theme song in my head. I don't have any of that from the Snyder cut with Junkie XL.
Is it the 1960s? Is it the 1960s theme song that you get in your head? The na 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 na. I don't want to sing it because I don't want to get copyright.
I was thinking the Danny Elfman version, but
okay,
yeah,
that's also very good too.
I will say this for the soundtrack. I do feel like this is the first movie that Hans Zimmer's theme for Superman actually got its moment and actually built to a triumphant note when Superman came in and started. That was the other thing I love when they were just beating the crap out of Steppenwolf. That was a great scene, and all of them
too. I was ready to do it.
Well,
yeah. She was going to go for the legs first.
I feel like we've gotten
sweep the leg.
We had gotten that Hans Zimmer theme before, but it had never really been used in a moment where it was like a just full blast, full power. And I felt like we finally got that here. Yeah, and that was the one moment as far as soundtrack goes that I thought was fantastic. I was way into it because I love that theme. I love Hans Zimmer's Superman theme. I don't love it as much as John Williams, but I still think it's a great theme.
But John Williams' Superman theme is so iconic. It's hard to...
He's the maestro.
And there's a nostalgia factor.
A warm blanket.
Yeah. And I mean, you picture Christopher Reeve as Superman every time you hear that song, and it just makes you happy inside. So it's hard. But I agree. I like Hans Zimmer's theme from Man of Steel as well, and I think it plays well in this movie. And when you get the bits of Wonder Woman's theme under the Amazon chanting, like it makes me want to hear that because that's one of my favorite themes in all of the DC movies as well. So yeah, but the music was just. It really didn't.
I didn't care. It didn't bother me either here nor there. Like for me, like usually for a movie, I'll bring up Tracy, Jake. You guys know this. Oh my gosh, I loved the soundtrack so much. Or I love the music. With this one, it just kind of blended in for me. So that's probably not a good thing either. But for me, it didn't bother me. It was kind of like the way the movie was formatted. I didn't care. It didn't bother me. So
see, maybe I wish I would have enjoyed this movie like you did, Val. I would take enjoying the last 35 minutes over not hating the music as much as I do. Like I would rather
if you're unconscious
the
for half of it, it's really good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
I watched it all in its entirety, but I did fall asleep the first time, like at part 2. So
I had to watch it. I had to watch it in chunks. I just didn't have time to sit down for 4 hours and watch a movie. Unfortunately.
Don't feel bad. I have never seen the Transformers through its entirety. I have slept through, and I never sleep at movies. I have slept through the Transformers 3 times. I don't know why.
I don't think any of us should feel bad for you about that. Like we should, you should feel happy and lucky that you have. Anyway,
I like the Transformers movies.
That's fine too. No? All right. I think we're at the point where we have to give this movie a grade. So, Josh and Blake, this is your first time on our show. We give a letter grade, not some weird rating system. It's just a letter grade that you feel like this movie deserved. So to show you how it's done, we'll start with Tracy, so we won't make one of you guys be first, and then we'll go to our guests.
Okay, so you guys know that when we talk about grading a movie, I have to separate things. So in terms of this movie, as
you have to take out the nostalgia factor.
Not nostalgia, but if you're looking at this as a movie, as something that I would turn on, that I would watch, that I would enjoy, I'm going to give this thing like a D, because it's 4 hours. It is slow. It is ponderous. And it hurts in a lot of ways.
Blake almost fell out of his chair.
If I were to watch this in chunks, like I did the first time, then I would probably be in like the C range. But in terms of film and filmmaking, this is not a good movie. It is not a good film.
Okay. Josh, what about you? What would you give this as a letter grade?
Okay, so I went into the movie, I mean, just rock bottom expectations, right? And I came out feeling much better about it. I'm leaning towards a C, closer to a C plus. I agree with Tracy on a lot of things. I think Zack Snyder's biggest issue is he doesn't know when to cut a scene. So each scene goes a few more minutes longer than it needs to. But that being said, there is a lot to love about this film in terms of visuals, in terms of, I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the Flash's action sequence on Stryker's Island. That's like the first time someone's done something interesting with the speed, where he's just kind of popping in and out. So I don't know. I think in terms of visuals, in terms of just kind of the visual art of it, I'd give it a C plus.
All right, Craig.
Well, I'm going to give it 2 grades as well, because there's two different things
long?
going. Well, might as well. It's my 4 hour. I'm going to rate. I have 6 grades for each episode, including the epilogue. No.
Yes.
You've got the overwhelming amount of hype that went along with the movie that you have to ignore, because that's half the reason people are kind of pissed off, is that everybody said, oh, once you see the Zack Snyder cut, you'll know the difference. You'll see the true vision. It's like QAnon saying that the president's going to be elected and not going to be elected, and then in March he'll show up. It's just not going to happen.
One of those little warnings on our Facebook saying QAnon's not real or something. Thanks, Craig.
It's not.
Thanks.
QAnon's not real.
Thanks,
and either is the Zack Snyder cut. I don't believe he had a cut. I believe he had a script.
Yes.
And I believe as soon as they said, oh, would you let us show the cut? He's like, oh crap. It's like someone who's talking about, I've got this great thing at home. Oh, let's bring it into school. Okay. And then they got to go home and make it. And so that's what he had to do. That's why it cost an extra $70 million, not just for the special effects, but to do the stuff that he really wanted. So I'm going to give it a D because it's a bad movie. It's just a bad movie. But it does have some good things in it. If you want to look at some visuals, I'm going to give it a C. So just like it's a DC movie. So yes, it's a DC.
Oh, that is.
I could have given it a W.
Magnificent.
I could have given it a W and a B
right now, Craig.
Yeah, but it's a DC movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Blake. What do you say? What grade are you going to give? Steph, by the way, if you guys don't know, Steph has asked us to rate in cupcakes. That's a different show.
Let her
Steph.
push you around. I don't think you should make her. She's getting angry at you. Just do what you need to do, Blake. This is your moment to shine.
Yeah.
This is your movie.
Steph,
you do you,
Steph,
boo.
if you guys don't know, is the co-host for Cutscenes and Cupcakes, which is one of our sister podcasts, and also Blake's wife.
I would give it a garlic spinach cupcake.
It actually sounds delicious.
I think at that point, if it's garlic spinach, is that a muffin instead of a cupcake?
Yeah.
It's got frosting on it.
It's got frosting on it.
I'm Italian. I'm going to dip it in some marinara. That sounds really amazing. Actually.
Okay. I'm afraid to give a grade.
Don't be afraid.
No,
this is a safe space.
You're in a safe space here.
We are always open for interpretation and sharing of opinions. There's no mocking.
Even when they're wrong, we want to hear them.
Right.
Fair enough.
Did you say unless it's Jake? Did I hear that from down below there?
And I'm about to get booted out of the show.
I think,
muted.
kind of like I was saying earlier, I think this movie made Batman versus Superman better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if Zack Snyder could keep going and tell us the nightmare sequence and all those other movies, that would make this movie better. So I'm going to give it 2 grades also. I'm going to give it, as a movie that I enjoyed, I'm going to give it a B+. I'm going to give it like a D+ because they gave us hope that there's going to be more.
Mhm.
And now it's gone. Like
You just
like
want to give him a big middle finger, is what you want to give him.
yeah, it's like why did you tell me that this could keep going and show me more when this is the end? So I felt when I watched it, I felt satisfied that I finally got to see something new. I got to experience a new vision. I felt frustrated that this was it. Kind of like if I never got to see Endgame and
Yeah.
Infinity War was the end. It's like,
This
okay,
is like a review of a strip club, Blake. You walked in, you enjoyed yourself, you had a great time, but
And now-
then you realized she doesn't love me. She doesn't
Yeah.
even like me.
I'll never get it. I'm just done. That's it. I'm out $70 million.
Yeah, I just paid $70 million
$70
for a hand
million.
job, and that's it.
And that's it. So that's why D plus experience.
I've muted
If Jake
Craig.
was still wearing glasses, they'd be off right now.
Every time you're on the show, Craig, every time we have a moment like this, you're muted. I think Val muted you.
I did. Did you?
we can't
I'm
hear him.
supposed to be the one that gets us the R rating. You don't get to do this.
I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't say
I
anything
know.
that would get you an R rating. It was all PG-13, but was my analogy incorrect?
Yeah, it's
Nope.
close. I think
It's
like I was saying, as a movie, I enjoyed it. It's a B+ because at the end I didn't get what I know was a future in this franchise. That lowers the grade.
You didn't get a second date. I got it. Yeah.
I think that's a valid description. Val, what's your grade?
So I'm gonna go with the 2 grades. This is what I gave it on TV last week, and I will do it again here. I give this movie a C because I did enjoy it. I do think it was better than the first. I would like to see more, and I think that is a really good thing in a movie when if you get to the end and you're like, okay, like I get to see another one. You know, I mean, we don't, but he gave us a want to see more of what we had. And I really just loved what he did with Cyborg and like getting into these characters. I would have given it, and this is a surprise to everybody probably, I would have given it a B if it wasn't so bloated and he could have actually edited it down to a 2 hour or even a 2.5 hour movie, and it still would have made sense and it still would have made me feel the same. I would have given this movie a B, but it's a C for those reasons.
I went in similar to Josh with very low expectations for what this was going to be because I'm a big DC fan. I love Superman, and I've struggled with Zack Snyder's vision of Superman since Batman v Superman. I think Man of Steel grew on me with time,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed it more as I went back and revisited it. I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would, and part of that is I think we finally got to see where Zack Snyder was going to go with Superman when he comes back from the dead and he goes onto the alien ship and he's got his 2 fathers, the memories kind of playing back, and he's supposed to bring hope to the people and he's supposed to be a light to the people and things like that. I think we're starting to see him becoming the Superman that I want him to be. Even though I know that in the second one, he was going to be the bad guy. That's fine. Whatever. He'll overcome. It'll be fine. But I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. That being said, I think it's a little long at 4 hours. And I think I would have liked to have seen them. At one point, they talked about it being a mini series. It was going to be multiple episodes. I think I would have liked to have seen it play out that way.
Mhm.
Just breaking it up in the parts that were already existing in the movie. But that being said, I did enjoy it. I'm going to give it a B, which is higher than I thought I would give it. So, but there were some things that were really cool, and I really liked how they played out. So there you go. there's our take on Jack.
Jack Snyder. It's the Wish.com version.
It's the Jack Bauer.
It's the Jack Bauer version of Justice League. No,
24 hours. That's how long he really wanted the first cut.
probably. But I do think, even though it's really long, I do think there's something cool about him finally getting to realize his vision for the movie, because I think we can clearly see that the first theatrical cut was not any one director's vision for what that movie was, but the studio trying to impose their vision on what they wanted the movie to be. I'd like to say Zach.
Nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'd like to say Snyder fanboys out there have finally gotten what they wanted, but we know that's not true because they've already started a new hashtag campaign to something the Snyderverse, bring it back.
Restore the Snyderverse.
Restore the Snyderverse.
And they know it works, so they're really emboldened them to protest more.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a little bit harder. I think there was enough of this movie there. Yeah. I think there was enough of this movie there for them to do this. I don't know that Affleck's going to come back to be Batman. I don't know.
There was an interview yesterday that said he wanted to come back as the Batman.
Oh, well.
Am I the only one that he thought he looked weird at that very last one with the Martian Manhunter? He just looked strange.
That was filmed later.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
That was,
he had like 7 different hairstyles in this movie. Like, I don't know if he keeps a hairstylist. No, but I don't know if he kept a hairstylist in the Mercedes-Benz. Like, it just kind of popped up out of the back to do his hair a different way every time he was on camera. But that was a lot for me.
He looked like he got a facelift in that last scene with the Martian Manhunter. So
he did stop drinking. So
yeah, I think he's in a much better spot than he was.
He couldn't have waited 2 weeks and stopped drinking after Fan X. I'm sorry. I'm just bitter over that. That was on my birthday. He announced that. I'm like, oh, I'm so close.
He was trying to ruin your birthday specifically.
He did. God bless Jennifer Gardner, though. She's such a sweetheart.
She's a national treasure.
She seems like a good lady.
No, Colin has been making comments this whole episode. I'm going to put this one up because it's applicable. Alfred does his hair whenever he goes into a new room.
Alfred's hair is amazing, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He is a handsome man. I would like to date Alfred. Don't tell my fiance that.
Well, your ex-boyfriend?
My ex-boyfriend. I do call him that, by the way, all the time.
I know.
Thank you, Craig.
All right. I won't tell him. I won't tell Dave. I hope he doesn't listen.
I'm going to message him right now. Hold on.
He's playing video games. He could care less.
Oh,
all right.
He hasn't watched the Snyder Cut at all, and he won't. So
all the madness that led up to the Snyder Cut, it is released. You've seen it. I think the only thing that can make this better is if I could see it in black and white. I hope that dream can come true someday.
Wait, wasn't in black and white?
Oh, wait.
No, apparently it wasn't. Because Justice League Gray is coming out soon on HBO Max. So
well, you could have fooled me.
Well,
he does not like color, Zack Snyder. Sorry. Even when he does films in color.
So many comments.
Well, thank you so much for listening, for watching, being here live. We really appreciate it. If you have comments that you'd like to share with us, you can do it in the comment section on YouTube or on Facebook, or you can email us podcast@moviesthatmakeus.com. Make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video, and then go ahead and hit the notifications bell so that you get notified whenever we have a new episode that drops. This will be available in audio format tomorrow morning. We'll get it turned around quick for everybody. And then March Madness continues. Our next movie is about a sentient, murderous tire.
Rubber!
And make sure you go check out our guests' pages as well on social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to check out the Let Us In tabletop role-playing game podcast starring Blake, right? You're the star, if I understand it right.
Yeah,
for
He's
sure.
The Batfleck
I don't even think there's
In.
anybody else on the podcast. I think it's just me.
You're in so much trouble.
It's a fantastic cast of which Blake is a part. Also, check out Craig. What do you have going on right now at Matinee Heroes?
Well, we just had last week. We just had Valerie on to do American History X as we do F Nazis month. See, I don't know how to do
I appreciate it.
But we bleep it out. That's the only time we bleep out the F word is when it's followed by Nazis on the podcast.
It was a really great episode, Craig.
You did a great job. It was really well
so
done.
much fun with you talking about Nazis.
difficult movie. Oh, it was tough.
Yeah.
But we finished
I had
up.
so much fun talking about Nazis. It was just
We did.
blast.
It was great. It was a very good,
It was
well-rounded.
emotional. It was
Yeah,
kind of an
it gets
emotional
into
thing.
because we usually just do German Nazis, which we're gonna go do Jojo Rabbit coming
This is
out.
I was
on
the first
Saturday.
episode where it was actually we were right here in the United States, and my whole cast was almost British. So
Yes.
when I recast almost British cast,
April, we're gonna
Nobody
have
plays an
Arnold
American
Schwarzenegger.
like a British person.
Yes,
Right?
Yeah.
well, they play everything, but we're gonna have Arnold Schwarzenegger month for Arnold April. We're gonna do Epic May, which is all epic '80s May. We have all '80s movies, and then we're gonna put a ring on it in June with the movies that make us crossover all month long as we do Lord of the Rings movies.
Ooh.
Wow.
So we're gonna put a
Nice.
ring on it June, and then of course the cast off kicks off April 13th. And there's other cool things happening at the Stolen Droids Network in May for RemoteCon.
Yep, RemoteCon is coming up. That's exactly right. Josh, what do you have going on over at the 90s Kid?
Well, a couple things. I've got an SNES retrospective coming up, Super Nintendo retrospective.
Nice.
One thing I have been working on, I've filmed and am editing a video entirely on a Macintosh Power PC from 1995.
wow.
And somehow I'm making it
Wow.
work. So
Wow.
that's going to be
So your
interesting
own
to see.
Snyder cut.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's in 4:3 format.
Pretty bad compression. Yes, it's going to be great.
480p.
It's going to be great.
It'll be real nice.
Yeah.
Real nice. That sounds awesome. So check out Josh's YouTube channel, The 90s Kid. He's got a lot of cool stuff on there. If you grew up or were a kid in the 90s, it's all a bunch of nostalgic stuff. So check that out. And we've got the rest of March Madness going on, movies that make us. And then episode 100 is coming up after our rubber special. It's not a
It
special,
just
it's just
sounds
an
bad,
episode.
but I love that you
Yeah.
say it, and it just
After our
sounds dirty,
rubber
but it's
episode?
not. It makes me so happy that you have to keep saying it.
Did you
I
get to
know.
see Lamageddon yet, Val?
Not yet.
No, okay.
I've been actually screening real movies like that are coming out.
Wow.
I get to go screen a real movie in a real theater on Monday. Like,
You'll get real COVID.
Wow.
Yay!
good. I'm not going to lick anything. I'm not going to lick anything.
David is
That's
going to be
good.
so
We've-
disappointed.
Tracy and I have been working really hard with Val to get her to stop licking stuff. So this
And
is
I've
a
been
big
doing
step.
really
forward. She's
well.
doing really
She's
well.
doing really well.
The
Apple
mask
bitters.
is really
Impressed.
helpful because with the mask on, it's really
Yeah.
hard to lick people.
Yeah.
That's
Spray
true.
apple bitters on everything.
Yeah. We do have episode 100. That will be on a Tuesday evening. We are going to go live. That will be on April 6th. So you guys will want to be here for that as well. Thank you, guests, Blake, Craig, Josh, for being here and helping us out. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And until next time, we won't see you at the movies.
Snyder Cut.
This has been a Stolen Droids Media production.